Hi, I am back. I'm very lucky for my third chat with Ismael Perez. How are you doing, Ismael?
I'm doing really good, staying busy, doing a lot of great things for the collective of humanity. So I'm just excited about what's about to unfold.
Yeah, I've been watching lots of your stuff and I've got your book here that I'm gradually working my way through, which is really good. And what I'm loving is each of the interviews that you're doing, you're bringing a different perspective and bringing more and more information out. Before we get into today's topics, because we've got some really great topics to discuss today, how do you balance? I mean, how much of your information is coming from research? How much is coming from memories? How much is coming from direct contacts? Because I think that's really, you're pulling it all together, aren't you?
Yes. I have I guess, a gift of putting a lot of information together, like a puzzle. Getting the pieces and trying to see what the bigger picture is. And so I've always had that gift. So it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of my transmissions that I'm getting from the Galactics. Is a combination of my own memories that are coming back, not only as a ultra elite super soldier, but also as a galactic before coming to this earth. Memories as to who I was in other lifetimes, and and I'm validating it by researching and investigating cutting edge research. Ancient manuscripts, to pretty much give some substance to all the information that I've been receiving in the last years. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's a combination of everything.
Yeah, it is great. And I suppose because there's so many other people that are just bringing little snippets in, that probably provides validation as well, does it?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I love hearing what other people have to say in their experiences with ETs and whatever programs they were in, or if they were just abducted, or if they're just contactees, because a lot of it does validate all the information that I've been receiving. So it's good to have confirmation from other sources as well.
Yeah, great. So today, one of the first things we were going to talk about, which really fascinates me, is why are we heading towards these huge shifts now?
Yeah, because we're ending 4 different cycles. We're actually culminating not only a planetary cycle, or what we call a zodiac from 2000, from the age of Pisces into Aquarius, which consists of 2,160 years, but we're also ending a world age, which consists of 2 of those, which is marked as a 5,000-year cycle. And at the same time, we're ending 5 of those world ages, which completes a greater cycle known as a Platonic year, a 26,000-year cycle. And then the final cycle that we're also ending is a 226 million year cycle, and that has a lot to do with our star system, with its parent sun known as Alcyon revolving around the galactic core with Sirius in a period or revolution of 226 million years. So we're actually at the end. We're at the culmination of all these cycles, which is going to totally initiate a whole new heavens and a whole new earth, like a reboot, which is amazing.
That is, it really is. I mean, there's so much coming together at the moment. And is that why, because you wrote this book, Our Cosmic Origin, in 2021, is that correct?
Well, I published it in 2021, but I actually wrote it. It took me about 10 years to write it and 20 years
Yeah.
to do the research. I did finish it back in 2016, but the Galactics were telling me that the collective consciousness of humanity wasn't ready for this next level of disclosure. So after a few years, I waited patiently. The manuscript was already set. So it was like, I felt like the whole time I was inspired again, like that movie, The Field of Dreams. If you write it, it'll come, right? If you built it, they will come. And so I was just waiting for the cue, for the right moment to publish the book. And so as of 2020, I received a call from a buddy of mine who was inspired to actually, see what I had going. He wanted to invest in me. And then at that point, I checked with the Galactics and they said, well, we send him to you. So it's all being divinely orchestrated for your book to finally be published. And I said, well, okay, I guess everything in divine timing. So that's how it happened. Yeah.
I think that's such an important message, because there's a lot of people that are saying, why are you suddenly everywhere at the moment? But I mean, I've looked back at your stuff and you've had interviews going on for quite some while. It's just, from my perspective, a lot of people haven't been ready to hear it now. I mean, if you think about, certainly no one had heard of me a couple of years ago. Most of the people that are speaking out and raising all these different areas, it's very new, isn't it? It's really come about over the last couple of years.
Yeah, especially since 2016, ever since, or 2017, ever since, the 17th letter of the alphabet emerged with the first, drop of intel. I mean, that is really what opened the doors to the Great Awakening that is now unfolding at a rapid pace. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to realize that, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And when the student's really ready, the teacher will disappear. And, there's a lot of people that have been trying to give disclosures for a long while, but the consciousness hasn't been ready to hear it. I mean, certainly from my point of view, I wouldn't have been ready to hear this a couple of years ago. It just wasn't even on my horizon. And now I'm completely fascinated with everything that you and others are coming out about, because it puts so many dots into place. So one of the other things I wanted to ask about is something I know very little about, is what other star races are assisting at this time and why?
Countless star races. So we have not only a galactic community consisting of advanced interplanetary, stellar, and galactic societies, but we also have intergalactic councils where human-like beings exist throughout the entire multiverse in every galaxy. So because the Earth is the most important planet in the multiverse as a living cosmic library, that's the original intent of the Earth, and that's the reason why this Earth has been at the center of all heat, throughout the last billions of years. But so we're receiving help not only from our local star family, like the Pleiadians, because our solar system is part of that cluster of stars known as the Pleiades, but we're also receiving help from, many different star nations coming from all over our galaxy, like the Arcturians, who represent a midway council of 9-dimensional collectives. We're also receiving help from the Andromedans, who represent a 7th-dimensional council collective. And then we're also receiving help from Lyrans, felines, which are advanced cat-like human races, bird-like races. They have various names. Their original galactic name was Carrions, but some call them the Blue Avians. And we're also receiving help from the Syrian High Council, which is like overseeing the entire expedition of Earth's liberation. And then on top of the Syrian High Council, we're also receiving help from higher levels of reality beyond the 11th dimensional scope of our galactic system that come from like 12, 13, and 14 levels of reality beyond our local universe. And those are known as the Metagalactic Alliance, consisting of the Azurites, the Atones, the Amorites, as well as the Bridgedettes. And that is known as the Intergalactic and Metagalactic Union Core that is actually forming an alliance between billions of galaxies, and they're making Earth like the new epicenter of that alliance, which is awesome. So we have like a really bright future to look forward to after the Ascension.
It is. I mean, it is really, really exciting. And one of the things that really fascinates me is in terms of how, so for mortals, those of us that are living in our current reality, and a lot of people, anyone who's watching this will have gone through a steep education, awakening, whatever you like to call it, process over a period of years, months, depending whether they when they join the party. But one of the things that I really want to discuss is, how does knowing all this really help us all right here, right now? Because there's this balance, isn't there, Ismael, that you've talked about quite a lot and very eloquently, about being in the present moment, because that's where we can create from, but also knowing enough about what's going on so that your attention's in the right area. And that's something that I'm a little bit confused about still.
Well, everything has a timing and a season. And from what I understand is Earth's quarantine from the rest of the galactic and intergalactic community has been lifted. Unfortunately, for the last 15,000 years, ever since the Orion group infiltrated us through Atlantis and took over the affairs of our Earth, we've been under a quarantine. We've been isolated. And this was done by the Galactic Federation in order to secure the victory in the galaxy. Because what they did is they just narrowed the battle down. They kind of isolated the dark side here in our solar system while they were cleaning house in our galaxy. And that clean house took like millions of years. So it's finally over. We've been yeah, that now it's the time. So according to my research, as of 2016, it's funny because that's around the time where all the whistleblowers and insiders came out of the closet. The quarantine was lifted. The Galactic Federation saw that the Earth was actually ready to enter a re-entry into the galactic community, that our collective consciousness was rising to a point where we were going to hit critical mass, and that critical mass is about to take place, especially with this huge data dump that's coming in this year, with this huge revelation. So I think that, everything has a season, everything has a timing. So we are in that timing now to once again understand our real roots, our stellar origin, our galactic history, and really just the concept that we are multidimensional beings,
Yeah.
and all that stuff is about to emerge. We're going to go from the concept of one universe to the concept of a multiverse. There's a lot of scientific evidence to back that up. The multidimensional nature of our reality is about to be proven through quantum physics. And all this evidence, in fact, has been suppressed in the last 50 years because of this rigid, controlled academia that has been ruling, what we know and what we don't know for 50 years or so. But again, now that we eliminated their masters, it's about time that all the new evidence comes forward in terms of scientific validation, and that's what's going to change everything. So yeah, this is the time.
Yeah, it's really the time for sort of all those bits of the jigsaw puzzle are really fitting into place. And I can remember 20 years ago when I was starting for one of my master's degrees, having some amazing lectures on the quantum physics, and then suddenly it was all suppressed. Suddenly you couldn't access any of that information again. So you're so right that so much of this has been known for so long, but we haven't been allowed access to it. And now there's so many people that are reaching out and sort of looking for it because they understand how important it is. And I suppose if we don't understand our origin, Ismael, then we can't really comprehend what we're capable of and start using those powers. So we're talking about the activation of our DNA and the strands of DNA that have been suppressed. But is it a little bit like the 4-minute mile? If you're constantly told it's not possible, you don't look to push it. Whilst now so many people are realizing that these powers are possible, it's going to flip into a reality.
Absolutely. And that's what the elites have been working on. They call it Project Superman or Superhumans. They understood that within the dormant DNA, we had by activating certain genetic coding, we would have access to godlike superhuman powers. And that's what initiated the super soldier programs back in the 50s. Well, technically they started with the Nazis, of course, in their nefarious agendas, but eventually the forces of light through the US Navy also developed their own prototypes where they were actually able to genetically enhance super soldiers or people's genetics to make them super soldiers. And they realized that we're coming into a time where, because our solar system is entering the photon belt, there's going to be some sort of a natural transformation of the human species from what they call human 2.0 to human 3.0. So now on the flip side of that, the Luciferian agenda, right, the Cabal, their version of human 3.0 is transhumanism, which is the idea of merging us with technology. So what's happening here is that, we have two competing versions of human 3.0. One is led by the Luciferian Brotherhood, that is controlled by the Black Sun cult, and the other one is led by the forces of light that believed in the time where humans on Earth would actually be transformed back into human physical angels as they once were when they were a full 12-strand DNA operating functional unit. And so that's what's happening right now. We are definitely living in some times where our DNA is mutating, and if people aren't ready for what's coming, I mean, it's almost like they're prepping us through these superhero movies, and they have been for the last 25 to 30 years, and I'm so grateful for the writers of Marvel Comics, DC, because those people were actually insiders back in the 50s. They were, involved in some private meetings where they were given certain secret information, but of course they weren't allowed to divulge it, but they did it in a way where they were just able to write the comic. So in a way, it's like they've been preparing us for this type of future that is coming. So
I've got a lot of catching up to do because one of my friends has been into the Marvel movies and comics and everything for years. and I hardly ever watch movies or anything, so I've got a lot of catching up to do then. But I'm so pleased you covered the two sides of the human 3.0, because I think it's something, we're seeing this the whole time, aren't they, where they take something good and twist it into something bad. And interestingly, I listened to an interview that was filmed about a year ago with Noah Harari, who wrote Sapiens and everything, who seems to have very much turned to the dark side. But when you hear him being interviewed a year ago, he was warning against all these problems. And now he seems to have been integrated into the New World Order. So it's very strange, isn't it, how they capture these people? It's like anything, any tool can be used for the good or the bad. And we've been seeing that a lot over the last goodness knows how long. So why do you think humans up until this time have made so many bad decisions that have led to such devastation for our own species, but also for other species?
It's because for thousands of years, they've been under the mental or influence control of the cabal. The cabal has been using mind control technologies, black magic, occult, practices in order to keep the human race hypnotized. But, all that stuff that they've been doing is not working anymore, because of the fact that people are waking up. So we're, in a sense, as a collective, we're waking up from this hypnotic trance that we've all been under for the last thousands of years. And throughout history we see little pockets of awakenings, like the Renaissance, in certain periods, of course, like the scientific revolution. Now we're in the fourth industrial revolution, right? But again, that fourth industrial revolution could either be used for good or evil. They call it the digital age.
Yeah.
So in that regard, we're heading into a time where things are going to be speeding up rapidly because of what's happening. So
apart from our age, which is going to be regressing, which I'm very pleased to hear. So in terms of the starseeds, I've had loads and loads of questions about starseeds, because people are getting very hung up on the dates that are put around when the first, the second, the third waves come in. I mean, my interpretation, which could be completely wrong, but those dates are just estimates. There's going to be some third wave ones that came in earlier, a fewer, and some, because people are getting very offended by if they think they're a starseed and they're older than the dates that are being given. Can you speak to that a bit?
Sure. The first waivers came in during the 50s. The 50s and I think early 60s. The second waivers came in during the late 60s and early 70s. And the third waivers came in the late 70s, throughout the 80s and 90s, and then the fourth waiver. So we do have a fourth wave, actually. It was brought to my attention by the Galactics, and those are the millennials. Those are the ones that are coming in with a automatically fully functioning third strand and fourth strand of DNA, as to why all the stuff that they're putting in their bodies is not really affecting them anymore, luckily. So we actually have four waves that have been coming in. Now, it was really difficult for the first waivers, because they had to set the energetic foundations for the other waivers to come into. They had it the hardest. Unfortunately, many of them did commit suicide in the 60s and 70s, because it was hard for them to acclimate to this lower density reality. But yet just their mere existence, their frequency as anchor points of higher energies was sufficient enough to create what we call the fifth dimensional grid that is now in place, and so they made it easier for the second and third and fourth waivers to come in. So yeah, the first waivers had it really hard. Now, the reason Dolores Cannon said that the first waivers were very iffy about creating a progeny, because they didn't want to create some sort of a karma, was because of the fact that they knew that the transformation of our human vehicles into human 3.0 wasn't going to take place until the end of the cycle, which is the beginning of the 21st century. So what they wanted to do was just to make sure that when they came here, they were just able to fulfill their obligation of setting down the grid blueprint for other starseeds to come, making it easier. But at the same time, they didn't want to leave a progeny behind, because then that would create some sort of a karma for them, because they knew that they were eventually going to go back to where they came from. So for the first and second waivers, it was very hard for them to have children. Yeah. Because of inner understanding that they're from a different dimension, and they didn't want to be locked into this lower dimension. But the third waivers were okay with having children, because again, the third waivers are going to, and the fourth waivers are going to be the ones that are going to be actually transforming these bodies into this this next level stage of human evolution, known by many names.
How do people know if they're a starseed? Because it's probably the thing that has provoked the most comments and the most sort of reaction in people. So how do people know if they're a starseed?
It's, if they feel a sense of, how can I say it, being different, if they long for home, if they feel like they don't fit in, if they're questioning everything, if they're rebels, then they're starseeds. Yeah. Because starseeds are in a way system busters. We came here to destroy the inverted programs that were initiated by the cult of the black sun back during the times of Atlantis that actually locked us into the slower dimension. They're here to neutralize that so that people could ascend back to the original dimension that we existed.
And they are still sort of humans in terms of the fact they've still got their unactivated extra strands of DNA that are soon to be activated.
Yes, they have the highest genetic potential than all of the humans on Earth, all the starseeds do. And that's the reason why, I guess the secret organizations have been using them as super soldiers, because they have like the most diverse genetics in the multiverse. Because their genetics was actually modified over and over to create like the perfect, what they call Uberman or Superman. And so that's why they use the starseeds for that.
It's fascinating, isn't it? So there you go. So don't worry, everyone. It's not absolute. You can, if you feel it applies to you, it probably does. So yeah. So many questions here. So in terms of spoken quite a lot. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I forgot to mention starseeds also have an affinity towards like mystical arts, the supernatural, extraterrestrials, anything that has to do beyond the scope of this realm. They're drawn to that information. So that's another indicator that you're a starseed.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've spoken a lot about meditation and why this is so important. Why is it so important for people now? And for people who've got resistance that say they can't meditate, what advice would you have to them?
It doesn't have to consist just of sitting and clearing your mind. Meditation could also be dance. It could also be body movement, yoga, tai chi, listening to music, whatever gets you to that state of awareness where you're just happy. Now, if it's very hard for you to clear your mind, I do teach techniques that help you build your concentration. And these techniques, are very simple. If you do implement them and you do put them to practice, you will improve your concentration abilities. You will be able to expand your concentration so that you could actually get into a very profound, deep, successful, efficient meditation. So it's very hard for some people to do that because their minds is just everywhere. But the whole purpose of us being here is to learn how to control our minds and to learn how to master our emotions and our thoughts. And that's how we're able to manipulate energy, is by controlling our thoughts. So yeah, meditation is key for that.
And that's what I keep saying. I've spoken a lot about this, Ismael, and I think it's so important. That's why it's called a practice of meditation. You need to keep working. If it's important enough to you, you'll keep putting the work in, and it will get easier and easier and easier. And then the results will really speak for themselves. So in terms of, you talk a lot about starseeds remembering their missions, and we're seeing a lot of people come out at the moment who are talking about remembering their missions. For example, people saying that they're plasma ship pilots and things like that. A couple of questions around that. Is it safe for people that are remembering their missions at the moment to be talking publicly about them, would be my first question.
Absolutely, yes. We have special protection from the higher dimensions. And so as of 2000, I believe 17, 16, that's when the clearance was given for people to come forward. That's when the dark extraterrestrial overlords were eliminated and defeated in our solar system. And at that point, the starseeds were able to come forward. So yeah, it's I think they're all going to be coming out of the closet at this time, as far as like fulfilling their mission and having memories of who they were. So it's happening already. And it's very safe. And it's very safe to come out now.
It's so fascinating to see people talking about this. And, obviously a lot of people get a lot of resistance when they start talking about this. And have you faced that as you've been talking out? Have you been getting resistance?
I've been considered crazy for many years, so I was very discernful as to who I shared information with. And like I said, for many years, I didn't have social media platforms where I could actually connect with other like-minded people. So it was very hard for me to share, all the information that I was gathering. So that's why I just brought it into a book. And so, I just became a hermit for 25 years as a result of that, because not everybody was ready to understand this. But I knew that the time would come, because, they were guiding me the whole time. They were saying, write the book, the people of the earth are eventually going to be ready for this type of knowledge. They're going to need to understand their cosmic origin. And that's why I titled it Our Cosmic Origin, because, we're dealing with many dimensions, multiple universes, endless worlds, and and much more.
It's so important, isn't it? Because it's been one of the main spiritual questions that people have asked forever is, who am I? And
Absolutely.
now we're really starting to understand who we are, and how, what we've been taught as a race we are is just so wrong. And it is important to understand that, because if you're constantly thinking that you're something you're not, do you think this is where so much of the frustration, mental health issues, etc., come in? Because people know that inherently what they've been told is wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of these, advanced gifted people have been categorized with mental illnesses, have been thrown into asylums, and have been, heavily medicating them. But what they're trying to do is really suppress their abilities, their clairvoyance, their ability to be multidimensional. And so they label them as schizophrenic and this and that. And it's just, they don't understand how to cultivate the gifts of these people. So it's, in a way, it's a threat to the powers that be. These gifts are a threat, but yet in secret, they study it and they enhance them and they use them in their, within the private sector. So it's like a hypocritical thing. The powers that be are threatened by our abilities, but yet they like to study it and cultivate it and then use it within their own, breakaway groups. So yeah,
that makes complete sense, actually. Are you in contact now that you sort of come out of your sort of hermit stage? Are you in contact with other people that are remembering their missions as well?
Yes, through social media, yes. There's a few people who actually have been communicating with me back and forth through DMs that are sharing their own experience and memories of who they were in the galactic history. Yes. And that's awesome. It's like, I feel like the whole tribe is now coming together. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. And what about using discernment? About how can people use their discernment? Because that we've been fed so much misinformation for our whole lives. And so people are really starting to learn to tune back in and use their intuition and use their senses more. But have you got any advice about that? Because there's so much, our natural humans naturally will go into sort of aggressive mode quite often, or sort of try to pull people down. But so have you got any advice about how people can be using their own discernment for what information they should be following?
Yes, if you feel it in your heart, that means in your, it's accurate. That means, you're getting information that is in alignment with your purpose. But if you feel it in the pit of your stomach, then that's an indicator that it's coming from an imposter or a dark entity pretending to be of the light. So use the discernment by, with your intuition and how you feel it. So make sure that you utilize that. Your internal guidance system is very key. Your intuition will allow you to discern the difference between the darksters and in those that are actually of light.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And I think, going back to what you were saying earlier about meditation, the more you get to feel into yourself and have that quietness, the more you're going to recognize that, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important, people, because there's so many people sort of, putting comments and criticizing this is that or that or that or so and so said that, and all that really matters is to tune in with yourself and what do you feel, and not project that on others.
Absolutely. And another thing to understand is that because the veil is lifting, many starseeds are going to be experiencing visitations from their star family. They're going to be having dreams, memories. So, you're not going to go crazy. It's because they're trying to reach out to you. They want to reach out to you. So many people are going to be having experiences like that, where they're going to actually have some sort of communication with their star family. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
It's be happening soon. It's already happening to some.
It really is, and we want to hear about it when you are, because I think this is the thing, is when these conversations start to be having organized. I've had so many lovely comments from people that have been listening to you saying, isn't it amazing that these conversations are starting to be normal within our community now? And certainly for the rest of my family, my extended family will listen to it. It wouldn't be normal to them, but there's a huge community of people now where these conversations are normal and they feel very comfortable with it.
Yes, because the collective consciousness is shifted to the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is the dimension of transparency, where everything comes to light, and that explains the huge disclosure that is coming. You know, so we're actually no longer in the third dimension. We're now in the fourth. And yeah, that's something that you know, I want everybody to know, that we are no longer in the third dimension. The fourth dimension is about truth. It's about revelation. It's about transparency. It's about seeing things for what they really are. And as the veil continues to lift, you know, people are going to be seeing actual, you know, star people or galactics walking among them, because in a sense they're already walking among us. It's just that they're in the fifth dimension. So as we collectively move into the fifth dimension, you know, the galactic community is already going to be there waiting for us. It's going to be
And do you already see this, Ismael, because of your level of knowledge and consciousness? Are you already seeing this? Do you sort of find you're going in and out of that reality?
Oh yeah, I'm constantly seeing ships, you know, not only me, but a few other people that I'm in contact with. You know, the ships are making their appearances, and I'm not just talking about huge motherships. I'm talking about like little scout ships as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm starting to feel the presence of the protection that I have over me, you know, as if everywhere I go, I feel like there's a ship that's constantly monitoring me. So that's good. A good way of feeling secured, you know, that I have nothing to worry about with the information that I'm revealing.
That's so great. And I think it's been interesting because since I've sort of opened up to this, I've seen all sorts of ships and things, but because they weren't initially what I thought they were, and then when I saw some pictures from other people, I said, oh my gosh, yeah, I've seen that as well, you know. So I think this is why it's so important to talk about these things, because once you open the mind up to the possibilities of it, then we're going to bring it in to stay. So you've talked quite a lot about the about whether we want to call them the white hats, the alliance, and we talk about the talking code. Everyone know who we're talking about, Mr. T, but also Mr. P. So who else? Are there any other prominent world leaders that are involved in this alliance? Because obviously there's just been so much going on that we've seen over the last couple of years with people exposing themselves on the more corrupt side of things. Are there any more surprise goodies in there that we need to know?
Yes. Oh yeah, Brazil. It's actually a coalition, an alliance of over 133 countries that form the alliance, and it's the biggest, vast military operation in the history of our world. And now they have the upper hand. You know, the alliance has been working very closely with the Galactics, the benevolent ones. So they have all this advanced technology that they're using towards their advantage in the defeat of the Cabal, and that's what they've been doing for the last 8 years. So yeah, the alliance is very, very, very real. You know, as we move into this new world structure and ASEA becomes implemented, people are going to know who they are. You know, we're also going to be under a new world system that is known as the Commonwealth of Nations, which is going to redistribute all the wealth from the elite back to the people. And you know, as a result of that, you know, things are going to be so much better. It's almost like we're going to be initiating a whole new era, and that's the beauty of what's going to be happening in the next, hopefully few months. We'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah, exactly. So are we going to have, do you know who these people are? Do you sort of personally know who some of the good ones are? Are there going to be some big surprises in there for us?
I would say yes, they are. Also the fact that a lot of them did fake their death, like Diana and JFK Jr. So when they come into the scene, people are going to be like, wow, what's going on? How did this happen? We've been lied to about everything. I'm like, yeah, we've been lied to about everything. And also to understand is that the Alliance and the White Hats are already interacting positively with certain commanders of the Federation. In fact, as I speak right now, Valiant Thor is our Venus representative, who represents the Council of Venus within the Confederation of Planets that we're a part of, is working hand in hand with JFK Jr., Trump, and, of course, P from Russia. and they know each other, like to the point where they're like almost having constant meetings on a weekly basis with the Galactics. So it's bigger than what we think, and that's why they created the fifth branch of our military known as the Space Force, because the Space Force is going to act as a legion between the technology that we've been using with Solar Warden, and of course, restoring that back to the Earth for the rest of humanity to benefit from. So that's why they created the Space Force. And the Space Force is also an organization, interplanetary organization that has Russia involved in it, and some of these other countries that are part of the alliance. So it's not just the United States that created Space Force. It's a conglomerate of all the countries that have signed the Commonwealth of Nations New World Alliance. So that's what the Space Force is.
So are you pretty confident that the New World Order is over? That's it.
Oh, yeah. Their time has been up long ago. Everything happens in seasons and in cycles. So they were only given about temporary control of the planet, and their time is up. And they tried hard since the days of Atlantis, when they tried to take over the affairs of Atlantis by first destroying Lemuria, and then trying to target other sister continents. They've been at it ever since. So from that point on, they've been trying to create this fascist world system through Babylon, through the rise of the different empires in history, and then of course, now. So it's now coming to an end for them. They had all this time period to succeed, and they failed, thanks to the alliance and thanks to the Brotherhood of Light, because like I said earlier in other interviews, the White Hats have always been around. The White Hats are associated with the community of Qumran of the Essenes, which was a private, secret, benevolent society that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were a part of. Then later on, throughout Europe, they reorganized it as the Knights Templars. But really, you could trace them all the way back to ancient Sumer in Egypt, where they originated as the Order of Melchizedek.
Yeah, and so many people, including our friend Vice, are, coming out with this information now. Now, one of the things is that people that are watching this, they're going to be absolutely delighted if there's public disclosure. I mean, there'll be party on the streets from all of us, but obviously there's a lot of people who know nothing about this. So when the disclosure, and I don't know if this is something you know about at all or not, so, but because the amount of questions people throw at you, we expect you to know everything. But when this disclosure or the EBS or equivalent comes out, how will the people that know nothing about this see it as a positive? Because if you find out you've been lied to all your life, it's a pretty hard hit for people. So is there something that's going to be announced or shown to people to say, but don't worry, it's all good? Because with the other advantage of humans is we are quite fickle. We can forget things quite quickly.
It's going to come as a shocker at first, like any revelation. Mm-hmm. After the shocker, as they see the evidence that is going to be presented through the media, they're going to be able to understand why things happen the way they were. And so those that are meant to wake up are going to wake up, and those that are unfortunately under this huge mind control heavy amnesia are going to have a very hard time to cope with things, to the point where they might even not even make it, have a nervous breakdown. So everyone's going to react differently. But this huge disclosure is meant to act as a final catalyst to really much trigger the awakening of humankind here on the Earth.
Yeah. Okay. So is the Earth really overpopulated?
Well, about 40% of the so-called people of the Earth are soulless. They're actually either clones, or they're extraterrestrials, or they're inorganic ones. Or they're NPCs, which is all pretty much one and the same. There's only maybe about 3 to almost close to 4 billion people that really have souls. The rest are soulless, or NPCs. They're not real. They're just there as part of the agenda to make life hard for those that have souls. And a lot of those people are in positions of power. A lot of them are, Hollywood actresses and actors. They're not the real people anymore. They're all clones. So that's also going to come as a shocker to most, that, we do live in a sci-fi world, that, we have been using advanced genetic engineering and cloning and other means of, creating different, clones and hybrids and cyborgs. I mean, all that stuff is going to come out eventually, because all that stuff exists.
Yeah. Wow. I can just picturing it now, thinking, my goodness. Now, Tartaria, you've spoken about Tartaria quite a bit before. but a lot of people are seeing, or thinking they're seeing, that they're seeing in our current reality evidence of Tartaria, so Tartarian buildings and things like that. How does that work?
Well, what's happening is because we are shifting back into the fifth dimensional Earth where Tartaria existed. See, Tartaria was also known as a golden age here on the Earth, and that that memorance was wiped out from our consciousness when the Cabal rewrote history. So, because we are shifting into the fifth dimensional Earth known as Terra, see, Earth has 5 aspects. Earth exists in 5 different levels of reality, each consisting of 3 dimensions. So, right now we're on the lowest dimensional Earth, which consists of dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Well, the Terra Earth consists of dimensions 4, 5, and 6. And that's where Tartaria exists. So that's what we're shifting again. So that's why all the evidence of Tartaria is slowly coming back. Wow. And I know. And not to mention Atlantis and Lemuria are also going to be fully intact upon the translation of our, the Earth entering the 4th, 5th, and 6th levels of densities of reality. In other words, we're going from harmonic universe number 1 into harmonic universe number 2 when this shift takes place, which is going to totally change everything. Awesome. Yeah.
So is this like the Mandela effect, and why some people can see it and some people can't?
Yeah, that could be a possibility. Well, also the CERN, the Cabal through CERN for the last 28 years has been trying to erase our history. And so, trying to alternate different scenarios that happened in the past. So that explains the Mandela effect as well.
Yeah.
They multiple versions of the Earth, unfortunately.
No, it is really interesting because there's such a fascination with Tartaria, and then when you start looking for it, you see more and more. But that makes perfect sense because we're already shifting back into that dimension. That makes perfect sense. So I know everyone hates timescales are so hard, but do you feel quite confident that there will be disclosure this year?
Yes, because all the stars are aligning in favor of that. We're at the end of the cycle. 2022 is the equivalent of the original ending of the 5,000-year cycle and 26,000-year cycle. So I'm very confident that at least the snowball will be initiated here, and but by no later than 2024, we should have already, generally speaking, for the general public, had already made contact with the Galactic Federation for the general public, not just for the private sector. So
yeah, okay. And are there certain nations, so during the whole lockdown fiasco, there's obviously different areas of the world have been hit very, very differently with different levels of horrendous control and regulations and everything. So are there any particular nations that are still in trouble in that respect, or are all of them, are any restrictions that are still in place in people's heads rather than a reality? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, they were up until a few months ago when the White Hats started cleaning house here with the help of the Federation. They started with Ukraine, and just recently, within the last week or two, as I talked about in a prior interview, they also cleared up the underground structure in Australia, because Australia was a big hub for the Cabal. Canada as well, and so now that the Alliance has cleaned house in those regions of the Earth, they're getting ready to just do it on a global scale, which is going to come in with the announcement of Nasera, Gesera, and the truth of everything that's been going on.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so many people are so hung up at the moment about money, because in the world that we've all been living in, it's a big stressor on people, and particularly since the penny seems to have really dropped for people about how they don't have any control of their sovereignty with the current systems that we've got in place. And there's this huge sort of 2 sides of the coin about the crypto side of things. Do people need to be, I'm not going to use the word worry, but if we're trying to encourage people to be in the right here, right now, should people be preparing and getting in some of these other technologies, in your opinion, or is it just fine to just sort of say, just be here right now, do your job, hold the energy, and just stop worrying about what's going to happen with the money in the future?
Yes, that's the second part. Be here in the present. Don't worry about finances, because all that's coming to an end. In the new world, money is not going to be an issue. We're entering a whole new different system of doing things. In the 5th dimensional Earth, money doesn't even exist. So the quantum financial system is going to only be operating within the 4th dimensional Earth, by the way, and which is still going to be a utopia. But the 5th dimensional Earth is going to be more magical and more at a higher level of reality in the fourth dimensional Earth. So we don't have to really worry about, this whole concept of money actually is associated with the dark cult. And because their time is up and they are about to be exposed, their entire Babylonian structure, including the medicals, industry, the pharmaceutical cartel, the oil empire, all that stuff is crumbling.
Yeah.
And we're going to be entering a time where free energy technology is going to be the norm.
Yeah. And we have spoken before. I always bring up the animals because all my audience are like me. They're just massive animal things. So we know the animals are going to be okay. What about all the species that have become extinct thanks to human action over the last however many years? Are they still in existence somewhere in these different realities?
Yes, they are. So as we ascend into the Terra Earth, which exists in harmonic universe number 2, occupying dimensions 4, 5, and 6, all those species that were extinct are all coming back, except the dinosaurs, of course, because the dinosaur project was initiated by the Draco reptilians. And
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. They, the whole purpose of developing these dinosaurs was to put a hamper on the development of human species here on the planet.
If we're living in a simulated reality, can I go back to reality where I can pick up people like Boris Johnson and Trudeau, or Turdo as I call him, and feed him to the dinosaurs? Because I'd love that.
Yeah, because in alternative Earth, the dinosaurs were never destroyed. There's actually 12 versions of the Earth, 12 versions of our galaxy, and 12 versions of our universe.
Wouldn't that be brilliant to send them all to that version of the Earth?
I guess it would, huh? Take the entire cabal, forget the Gitmo tribunals, just send them back to the dinosaurs and have them be snacks for them.
I think it'd be perfect. If you could put in a word there, then I'm happy to help take them in my plasma ship. So yeah, I think that's, I've obviously got an evil mind. So how do you deal at this moment? How do you deal with negativity? Because you, as you say, so many people have thought in your real world that you're mad, and now you're connecting with a whole load of people that don't, but you must still feel it in some areas. And it's something that's affecting so many people that are watching, that most of their family, they think they're complete nuts. Have you got any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I start disassociating with people that are harsh and mean. I only pretty much just talk to people that are on my level now in order to keep my vibration up. But even if I run into people that are very low frequency, that are just trying to bring me down, I don't let it affect me anymore. I don't take it personal anymore. I understand that they're still sleeping mentally, and so there's no need to try to argue with somebody who is asleep. So I don't take it personal. I just ignore it. I don't let negative people affect my life anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not one to be involved in conflict or anything. I just like to continue doing my mission and purpose, and not really care about what others think.
I think that's just the most perfect message for everyone. And it might not, we might tell ourselves it's not easy, but it is if you make that decision, isn't it? And also with compassion, because you seem always to be so compassionate about understanding. It's a bit like someone, if they've got a drink problem or a drug problem, they're not in control. That's what the mind control's like, isn't it? It's like these people, it's not the real them that we're seeing often, is it?
Yes, you're right. It's not the real them. It's, when people are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, they're host for Archon energies. The Archon is the addictive energy behind that, or the addictive force behind that. So it's not even them. It's the Archon energy in them. They're just feeding into it.
Yeah. So I have to ask, because it's something very dear to my heart. One thing that's always really not made sense to me is, if there's a God or creator, why would they create a planet where animals eat other animals? Humans eat other animals and things. So is that in the 4th or 5th density? Does that not exist anymore?
Yes. The carnivorism only exists within the 3rd dimension. In the 4th and 5th dimension, we live off of just plants and fruits and vegetables, and the animals do too. At that level of reality, there's a harmonious balance between all species, and animals also become telepathic. So yes, we're going to be communicating with animals, just like how we're communicating right now.
I know. I do it all the time, Ismael, but sometimes I wish I could get it better when one of my naughty cats doesn't come home. But so the cats won't be eating the birds and the bunnies anymore.
No, not in the fourth and fifth dimensional level of reality. Yeah.
I think we spend quite a lot of time there already, cats.
Say that again.
I think cats already spend quite a bit of time in the fourth and fifth dimension.
Oh yeah, most cats are extraterrestrials actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spoke about this before. You see, everyone's laughed at me because I mean, some of my cats are just absolutely out of this world. And people think I'm completely nuts, but it's true. They really are. And they really do talk a lot more sense than most humans. I could literally talk to you all day. Every time I speak to you, Ismael, you surprise me because it's just so the way that all this information starts to fit in and make sense. I mean, you must be so excited to the fact that we're at this stage now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I dreamed for this moment my whole life.
Yeah, it's just beautiful, isn't it? So is there anything else you want to finish off with that you want to tell people before we go?
Yeah, there's some I guess false misinformation that is being circulated in the internet, where certain people are teaching this idea of the immersion pod theory, that starseeds are actually, the real bodies are in some sort of chamber stasis, they're sleeping, and that these bodies down here were just temporary for them to fulfill their mission. And then once these bodies expired, that they would go back to their original bodies on a ship that is, resting in some sort of pod. Well, that theory is incorrect, because what that does is that completely aborts the ascension process. The whole reason of us coming down here in these new physical forms is to integrate all the other versions of ourselves into the oneness, into the here and the now, collapsing the polarity duality, right? And also, these vehicles that were given to us are the most advanced biological specimens in the multiverse, because we are the result of an intergalactic experiment that's been going on for billions of years. So these bodies have been designed to evolve and surpass every other species, in the multiverse, into levels of reality that are beyond. And not to mention, they are living quantum biological computers in a way. So all the stuff that they're building through Silicon Valley is a mimicking of the technology, the natural technology that exists within our DNA. And so I believe in what is known as multidimensional integration, that we have different versions of ourselves that are still functioning and operative, not in stasis, not sleeping in a chamber, but still operating on different levels of reality, all the way to the 12th dimension, because we do have 12 versions of ourselves. And so the whole purpose of coming here was to integrate, to bring heaven to the earth, to activate the different aspects of ourselves and collapse all our avatars into the here and the now. And so that's one thing that I wanted to, let everybody know, that don't buy into the false teaching of this immersion pod, hypothesis, because that is designed to deter us from the original purpose of us coming here, which is to anchor in heaven on earth and to upgrade these bodies into, physical human angels upon the activation of our dormant DNA. So yeah, these are the bodies that we're going to actually keep for all time and all eternity when we do want to, manifest in physical form. This is going to be the body that we're going to keep. Of course, the body's going to regress to looking 30, and that's how we're going to be, live forever and become immortals once we activate the dormant DNA. So yeah, so that's just one of the things that I just wanted to throw out there.
Yeah. And on that note, because I saw that on your Instagram, so I would really encourage, obviously all Ismael's links will be below, but if anyone's getting messages from both of us, because people, same with mine, that about readings, it's not the real account. None of us do psychic readings and send out messages like that on Instagram. So your real Instagram account, the link will be below, and it ends in Xeon1, doesn't it?
Yes, I only have one account. I'm never going to have a backup account, just to throw it out there for the books, so I understand there's hundreds of accounts. Obviously they want to, throw a monkey wrench in my message, or at least divert people from my real account. So yeah, just be wary of that. I only have one account. There are no, other accounts under my name that I created. Those are all fake imposters. Yeah, I still have some room left in my September course for those that haven't had a chance to sign up for my Starseed cosmology course. There's still a few spots left. And yeah. Oh, another thing, for those that haven't read my book, this book is definitely a trigger to a history that was erased from our memories. So if you guys haven't had a chance to order A Cosmic Origin, get it while it's activating. Well, it's still here.
Do
Hopefully
get it. It's really, really good. It's really, really good. I'm having to go through it quite slowly because there's so much information in there, and a lot of it's quite new to me. So, but it's really, really worth it, guys. You can see mine's very well used. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I'd really encourage the links about how you sign up to the course are below. And I think I saw you saying on one of your Instagram that you were putting in a different time slot as well for people. Was it in your October course? You were opening up some different time slots for people like us in the UK?
Yes, we're going to be doing I guess since I live in California, it would be 10 a.m., which
Yeah.
would be about 3 p.m. afternoon?
About 6 p.m. for us,
Oh,
of
6
those in the UK. So that's perfect, because I know a lot of people have said, oh, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. Don't worry, there's another course that's opening up that will make it accessible for those people in Europe and the UK and things. So thank you very much for doing that. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brilliant. It was such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we'll be back. I'm loving all the other interviews that you've done on the other channels as well. I'd really encourage everyone to look at those because they're all very, very different, and they cover all the different bits of the jigsaw puzzle putting together. So please do, you can easily search for Ismael on YouTube and all the other ones will come up. And I really hope I'll be able to persuade you to come back again very soon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kathy. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.